So one day, I said if you could make any change to a main, sub, ability, or special weapon, what would you do? These are your guys' responses. Let's get into it. Basil said, I remember run speed being faster in Splatoon 1. Yeah, most weapons in the game stacked better with run speed back in Splatoon 1. One weapon that was really common with it was actually Splatter Shot, running 1 to 2 mains worth of run speed, which is something we don't really see anymore. I do think the higher amounts of run speed are still pretty good. Tacticoolers made that clear, but outside of Splatlings, I think they could make run speed a bit stronger on most weapons. I would be open to that. Ren says, buff the effects of special power-ups so it's worth at least considering on like more than 2 specials. Always feels like the most overlooked stackable ability in the series when it comes to that. I do think that special power-up can be annoying really easily. Sometimes it can enhance effects that are just a bit too strong, like Inkjet special power-up making its old buffed radius way too good. And on top of that, it can eat into your gear dependency, which can be a little annoying, but even with those aside, I don't mind if they buffed it to be a little bit better, and I think that's kind of what's subtly been happening. We've been seeing some of the special has less duration, but special power-up is better type things, but I do think some specials could use new special power-up attributes. For example, Big Bubbler has a beacon inside of it, and I think the amount of special power-up you sub should basically be the equivalent of sub power-up for that beacon. So if you ran 2 sub special power, you would have a lot faster of a beacon you could jump to, for instance. That could be really cool and a nice way to add more to the special. Ray says, remove Dynamo's vertical flick. I've talked about this before, but for the other rollers, I think vertical flick is pretty insane on them. Carbon Roller has long range combos with Burst Bomb and hits very well under ledges. Regular Rollers is a solid poking and mobility tool. Big Swix is possibly one of the best movement tools in the game and is also very fast, and Flings a Roller paints a ridiculous amount. Dynamo does nothing special, and if they don't want to make it special, then it would arguably buff it to get rid of it. Since being able to squid roll off walls or squid surge, something it will do pretty often when it has Tacticooler on one of its kits, would be way more useful if you could do that and then horizontal flick instead of vertical flicking. I would cut all subs and abilities in cost / damage to make sure you aren't constantly dying to sub spam. This initial statement for Valorant reflected my thoughts well. You don't kill with abilities. Abilities create tactical opportunities to take the right shot. This was before the LDE nerf, so hey, it kinda happened. On top of that, when Splatoon 3 was released, the lethal damage radius of all bombs in the game actually got slightly reduced. I think with the last ditch nerf, it's in a pretty solid spot, and you can't mess with the damage too much because it is helpful for breaking objects, you know, crab or splash wall. I wouldn't mind if they adjusted it down a little bit, and there is an idea later in this video that has a pretty cool adjustment though, and we'll talk about that when we get there. Blue says Marker gives 5 seconds of Disruptor's effect when you hit it direct. Yeah, I think that's a little bit extreme. Disruptor is basically just Toxic Mist, but it sticks to you. It's the Splatoon 1 sub-weapon, and that sticking to you for 5 seconds is kind of crazy strong. I do think it'd be cool if Marker could have that effect, but it'd probably have to be way shorter of a time, like 3 seconds max. It wouldn't make Dart broken, but it would make it overtuned. Something could be overtuned and not overpowered. That's basically what the Dart challenge was a bit back. So it's a nice addition, but it shouldn't be too much to where it's just one really annoying thing when the sub still has other problems. Pat says, make wall deployment placeable anywhere within its range like any other sub. It's the only sub in the game that you can't precisely aim. Now, I don't think wall should have too much freedom in terms of being thrown, because it's much more powerful with its shield in my opinion, and if you could throw it with the same freedom as a bomb, it'd be kind of crazy. However, I do think it should at least have an indicator for where it's gonna land, as pretty much every sub in the game has this, and they could just show like a little line on the floor of where the wall's gonna end up. It would especially make trying to throw walls on tower after like Squid Roll or jumping off the back of it way easier. Reef Slider, but it doesn't drop like a rock anymore. Instead, the momentum carries over so you can slide in from a height area or use it to fly like a ramp. Add this to the list of ideas that would be really cool to do if it didn't break the game because of out of bounds or unintended shortcuts. It would be cool if it at least was invincible after the normal startup time, rather than waiting until you hit the floor to be able to have that startup. I mean, seriously, some specials are faster than this thing's startup. Looking at you, Trizuka. So I think at least that would be a fair adjustment. Fiery Ocean says, rework Respawn Punisher to give you stat boost anytime you kill someone instead of a slower respawn. Still at the cost of you respawning slower. Would probably have to be renamed. I like this idea, but if it's good enough to be used on non-backline weapons, then we're still gonna have to deal with slower respawns because everyone will be using it. Maybe instead of you having a lower respawn time, your stats can be made slightly worse as well. That way you can get better stats every time you get a kill for a limited time, but when you respawn, you're gonna be nerfed for a little bit and have to wait it out. That could be a cool trade-off that keeps the respawn and special saver perks gone from the special. I really like the idea though. This is cool. Let Reef Slider eat bombs. Yes, for God's sakes, this is a hybrid of Splashdown and Baller from Splatoon 2. Why does it still not have this effect yet? I'd like Big Bubbler to have a Toxic Mist or slight damage effect on enemy players who go inside it. My personal idea for this is when the bubble is destroyed, it drops a Toxic Mist for like 3 to 5 seconds. I think it being active while you're in the bubble could be a little bit strong, and I still want being able to go inside the bubble to be relevant counterplay for weapons that can't easily break it. Gabe Lev says says, give all stringers naturally higher jump height while charging. Welcome to another would be really cool if not out of bounds. They do specify it here though, so maybe there's a way you could give it more jump height, but I feel like even if you did a tiny bit, it would probably have some out of bounds cuts, so unfortunate. Electro J says, if the Zipcaster user takes enough damage to normally die, they instead will jump back to the recall. If Zip proves to still be a little bit weak after this buff, meaning if things other than Stamper still don't see competitive use, then I think it could be an interesting idea. You might have to tone back the special a little bit to compensate. I don't know, maybe getting rid of the arm armor, but that could be a bit difficult, though it doesn't work half the time anyway. It would also need more startup to me. You don't want it to be a panic button if it's also going to be able to be an extra life. Still, it's a cool idea though, maybe worth considering. Jiv said, repeatedly using sub-weapons should increase whiting frame slightly. This could reset to normal after a few seconds, kind of like how SSBU made changes to rolling. I actually really like this idea. It's a way of punishing bombs, but especially if you're trying to spam them repeatedly, since the whiting frames could be mitigated if you're using your main gun more between them. And having it to stop just purely spamming the bomb could be really useful. It's just a bit hard to balance. A lot of weapons like Zap will throw suction, then paint a bit, then recover their ink, rinse and repeat. And if that gets around the whiting frame counter, then it's kind of pointless and will just punish some other weapons that can't paint in between it, or have bad main weapon whiting frames like Gold Dynamo. Still, it's a cool concept though, so I think it's worth noting. Flota says, Splatbrella damage increased from 81 to 90, Undercover from 40 to 45. If we were one patch ago and Sorella didn't literally get its perfect kit, then I would say sure. I still think Brella should get a buff, but I don't know if it needs that harsh of one considering how strong the Sorella kit is. That or if it did, it would have to come with like 190 to 200p. Undercover on the other hand really should get this buff, mainly so the shot shield combo can actually work. Now that we made Zipcaster passing through plus max explosion no longer do a depressing 95 damage, Undercover Brella's 2-shot plus shield now looks incredibly depressing. How is that not a kill combo yet? Come on guys. We do not need to be afraid of the 200 HP shield. If they can't break it before an Undercover gets in their face, it deserves to kill. Finally, Van Noah wants to change tap weapons so that you don't need to mash. Now some people might have issue with this, but yes, there is no good reason why weapons should be locked behind a mash requirement. Some people physically can't play them and it's not good for the controller. Splatoon 3 has accessibility issues. Anyone who has to play sticks and goes into the stick settings will tell you that. There is a mash limit, so it would not be broken. I don't know what people are afraid of to give weapons accessibility options so other people can play them. This game needs more accessibility, period. It's pretty simple. Alright though, that's what you guys want. For y'all in the YouTube comments, what do you guys want to see? Let me know, and I'll see you all next time.